Thank you, choir. So how old were you when you first had your heart broken? Do you remember this? Was it on the playground when a boy ran away from you, or when a girl pushed you over in the sandbox, which is what happened to me? Was it from a first crush who turns out that they liked your best friend instead of you? Was it realizing that your dad was not Superman, that your parents were just people? Was it when America failed to keep her promise of being the greatest nation on the earth, the land of the free, and the home of the brave? There are lots of kinds of heartbreak in the world. One of my colleagues, in her message to new members of her congregation, says that it is only a matter of time. It is when, not if, this congregation breaks your heart, because we are made of imperfect people. So you need to decide now what you will do when that happens. Will you stick around and let grace work its magic? Or will you look for another place to find home? Either is a fine choice, but you need to decide now. Because heartbreak is what it is to be human. Getting your heart broken, losing your faith in someone or something, that is what it is to be alive. The loss of faith and the heartbrokenness that has happened from organized religion has been going on for a long, long time, for at least the past 60 years. But for our purposes today, I'm most interested in the last 10 to 15 years. My colleague Peggy Clark, who is at the Community Church of New York City, started this program called Disrupt Church. She wrote this: across the country, UU churches have seen a dramatic reduction in membership. We've lost 18,000 children in our RE programs over the last 10 years. We've lost 100,000 members over the last 50 years. In 2020, the average size of a UU congregation was half the size of 20 years earlier. She said, we're getting older, grayer, smaller, and less relevant. Them's the facts. But that trend has turned around a little bit in just the last few years. And we'll see what continues to happen in this new theological term, dumpster fire, that we find ourselves in now. Because it's not a matter of if, but when our hearts continue to be broken, our faith shaken and lost, right? Not just in people, but in the institution, perhaps, of America, or the institution of church, of organized religion. Whenever you put your faith in people, we're bound to let you down. So here we are, 2.5 administrations, it feels like, a pandemic later from when Peggy Clark wrote those words about the state of Unitarian Universalism. How are we feeling? To lose faith in the institutions that are supposed to protect us, supposed to empower us, so as to give us comfort, and if our UU's values are to be believed, and speaking for myself, those institutions that were supposed to keep us progressing as a society, onward and upward forever, as the great UU thinker James Freeman Clark once said. That was the promise of liberal religion, human progress onward and upward forever. But here we live in a time of brokenness, broken hearts, broken government, broken social media, broken relationships across families, broken ceasefire treaties in Palestine, broken campaign finance rules, broken education funding, broken gun laws, broken dreams. Do other people feel like you've lost faith in the institution of America right now? Does that resonate with other people? So here's the question. When did those people who I have called uninformed, misinformed, wrong-headed, wrong, when did those people lose faith in America? When did they lose faith in the institutions and the dream of America for them? When did they become brokenhearted enough to choose this? The loss of faith in institutions that parallels the rise of authoritarianism with the decline in liberal church membership seems to be almost a perfect line together. I thought I was the only one who'd ever thought of this, and I was really excited about that until I read Peggy Clark's words that says that exact same thing. Peggy Clark and Jill Novinsky, who was the religious educator at Community Church, had the same insight. He said that when we come to UU communities, often we have lost faith in perhaps the organized religion of our upbringing, right? We may have replaced the vocabulary of God with a capital G for something bigger, right? For community, for something along those lines. That we put our faith in something else from the faith of our youth. But we still have high expectations for that higher power. Even if we have stopped believing in a God, a supernatural God, when we come to communities, we still have high expectations of our community with a capital C, perhaps, our church with a capital C. But it is only a matter of time before a congregation lets you down. And what happens when you're let down? You stick around and let grace do its thing, or do you find a new place to call home? Right? These are the choices that we could make, especially here in America. So Peggy Clark and Jill Novinsky, they noticed that that was happening in their community, and they started doing this research. And Peggy came across this book by Jason Alexander, not that Jason Alexander. He wrote a book called Citizen, and he said that society has moved through this shift, that originally the kind of relationships and community we had were subject models, where there was a king and the subjects, and the king told you what to do and what to think and kept you safe, but you had no choices. And then in the mid-20th century, give or take, maybe even earlier than that, but especially in the mid-20th century, especially in the white Western world, we developed this consumerism model, right? Where it's about individuals and individual choices post-Enlightenment, that you get to choose your own destiny, your own future, your own church or congregation, your own religion, right? It's what UUism is, right? It's bringing your individuality into a community. We moved into this consumerism model where you try to take that power back for yourself, right? We talk about church in consumer language. People go church shopping. We talk about fiduciary responsibility, using our pledge dollars as votes of confidence in the minister or not, right? We talk about being come to be fed by the words of the minister, being nurtured or nourished in the congregation, right? It's very much a receiving thing, right? Which could be viewed as transactional if we make that choice. The third model, after subject and consumer, is what Alexander calls citizens. It's what Peggy Clark and Jill Novinsky are offering up to UUs and to America to think about, to move to a citizen model of being in community, where it is not just about what you get or receive, but it's about who you are and what you take and give back, not just in the four walls of your community, but out in the world, right? To radically alter the nature of what it is to be a member of a congregation, to be a member of the United States, right? That if we viewed ourselves as citizens, people who were not just independent, but who were interdependent. If we were known by the company we keep, she says, our interdependence, our intradependence on one another for common flourishing and thriving, it would change the choices that we make, right? It would change our individual choices, and it might change how you think about religious organizations. So she started this model called Disrupt Church because she said the consumer model is not working for us. Not only is it not working for us, it's killing us, and it's killing the planet. She's very strong language. She said it's making us unhealthy to think that we are independent, that we should just choose for ourselves what caters to what we kind of want, right? That being interdependent, part of a community, rather than being church being a place you go to, church being something you do together, that's a healthier lifestyle, physically, mentally. She says consumerism is killing us. So she started this model called Disrupt Church. And when she says church, she means kind of old white Protestant church, right? So it's time to use some imagination. What could Unitarian Universalism be? What could this institution look like if we invested modeling being citizens People who value interdependence, who don't try to go it alone. Thinking of church as not something you go to or leave from, but something you do, something you are. Thinking of our pledged dollars not as commitments to a minister or to an institution, but investment in ourselves, in our community, right? For communal thriving. Moving from dependent subjects to independent consumers, citizens are interdependent. Citizens build networks, share ideas, move information freely to empower the whole. Citizens create collectives. The citizen story moves us from being passive subjects being told what to do, or isolated individuals thinking only of ourselves, to being partnered collaborators, working for the good of the whole. The subject model was about a vassal relationship. The consumer model, is about a contract. I give you this and you give me this, and if I don't like it, I'm out of here. To the covenant model, which says, I know my heart is going to be broken, but I'm pledging to stay and come back to the table because I believe in us and I need you to survive. I need us to survive. I know myself to be an interdependent person. That's a reimagining, I think, right? That's a reimagining. Some of these things we do here at UU Mount Airy, some of these things we're still working on. But this is the thing about institutions that doesn't work so well with your first crush, for example. When you have your heart broken and you lose faith in someone, can't always undo that hurt. But as a collective, you can. You can reimagine things. You can restructure things. You can restore things. You can regain faith. Ask your liberal Catholic friends what it has been like for the past 10 years for them if they left and then had Pope Francis come into their lives. There are many stories of what it means to reimagine institutions. They always take hard work. They always take vulnerability. They always take time, and they always take trust. They take an investment of resources, not just from my wallet, but also from my heart. When we talk about putting love at the center of all that we do, sometimes that involves giving something of yourself. Not just taking the love that's at the center. Sometimes it involves giving too. And that can be hard when we're tired, when we look around at this, again, theological term, dumpster fire. But to have faith in this time, to have progressive faith, to be part of organized religion in this dwindling, graying, aging, less relevant denomination, the lament does not have to end there. We could reimagine that things are not unrelated, that the decline in liberal religion is not the only reason that we have a dictator fundamentalist. It's part of the story. And that also means that's part of the story that we can help rewrite. So here's what I want to argue. That practicing a citizenship model, doesn't matter what vocabulary you use, for me it comes down to this. What will you do when your heart gets broken? Will you make the very rational, reasonable choice to leave and never come back, which is totally understandable and totally valid? Or do we make a harder choice, perhaps a braver choice, and what I think is ultimately the more healthy choice, the more healing choice, the more liberating choice, to say, no, I'm going to come back to the table because I believe in this. I believe in us. I believe in putting love at the center of all that we do. Right? You don't have to believe in me. You don't have to believe in Rita. You have to believe in Elizabeth Ann. But you do have to believe. That's what faith is. And my favorite definition of faith is not just believing in something that you can't see. For me, faith is about staying in relationship with something, even when it breaks your heart. So if you're here, if you are hearing these words, if you're brave and taking a chance to have faith in this institution and these people in this community, I invite you to join me in having that faith. Because I think if we all modeled that, of being honest about our heartbreaks and trying to reimagine something together and sharing that message outside of these four walls, we may not be able to change the whole world, but we could start. Because that's what church looks like to me. And I don't know how else to do it. And I know I can't do it alone. So I'm so glad to have a few wild-eyed, starry-eyed dreamers reimagining faith with me here. This beautiful, broken dumpster fire of a world. May it be so. Amen.